Somewhere out there, there are future vestry members, hopefully lots of them. And among those, perhaps a couple of people that will be called to be the stewardship chairman. So a word of advice, when that happens and you're on the docket to give a stewardship sermon, and only a couple of weeks before that, the rector does a from the pulpit forum on how he prepares sermons, go. And you might think I'm giving you that advice because that's what I did and it worked really well for me. Maybe not. Because I didn't, and instead I'm going to have to rely on my powers of observation from all those sermons that I've sat through. And so one thing I noticed is a lot of times the preacher likes to start with a prayer. So I'll do that very short prayer because I don't have a lot of time, and I'll say what surely a lot of you are thinking, pondering the prospect of getting a stewardship sermon from me. God help us. So, the other thing I've noticed in sermons is a lot of preachers like to tie the sermon somehow to one or more of the readings. And that's where I ran into trouble. Because I looked at the three readings, and the one I really liked, if for no other reason than I thought it was kind of funny in an ironic way, is the wedding banquet story and that poor guy that gets bounced from the banquet. Put yourself in his place. I think it's the earliest recorded example of somebody getting punked. The guy he's standing there on the corner in Winslow, Arizona, and somebody pulls up and says, "Hey, get in the car, the king's having a banquet, he wants you to go." Okay, well, I didn't even know we had a king here in Winslow, but I'll go. King's probably got lots of cute girls at his party and there'll be an open bar, so I'll go. And then he gets there and they don't like the way he's dressed, so they tie him up and beat him up and jump him back on the corner. It's kind of funny. We could do a lot with that. We could talk about what that means for us and our relationship with God, but the problem is it doesn't have a darn thing to do with stewardship as near as I can tell. So that left me with two others, and, unfortunately there's the golden calf going, moo. It's about stewardship. It's about money. The Israelites melting their gold and turning it into an idol and worshiping it. You got to talk about me. And I'm trying to ignore that because, really, the golden calf story, I'm supposed to inspire you to pledge by calling you stiff-necked and corrupt and calling down fire and brimstone for you worshiping the false god of money instead of the Almighty God, right? Show of hands, who wants to hear that sermon? Oh, I'm not going to go there. At least not yet. Because our focus in this year's stewardship campaign has been on good news, and I hope you've seen that in the stewardship presentations that we've done during the service and after the service in coffee hour. We've been trying to hold up the good things that we're doing with our collective time, talent, and treasure. Things that maybe we take too often for granted, because we are doing good things here, and we should be proud of that. If we don't take time to reflect on it, to me, it becomes kind of like, the Combined Federal Campaign or the United Way campaign that some of us have experienced at work. It's easy, but it's kind of antiseptic, isn't it? You get this big catalog full of thousands of charities, you pick the ones you like, you decide how much you want to give, you fill out the little form, and you're done. The money comes out of your paycheck, you get a little lapel pin or a sticker or something. Your boss might get a plaque to hang on the wall because your organization exceeded their goal, and we somehow feel good about that, despite the fact that we generally don't see that money in action. So if that's the case, how much better should we feel about stewardship here at St. Andrews? Because it's not that model. It's not easy. It's not antiseptic. It's real, it's tangible, and it's here and now in this place. It's almost $170,000 going to outreach, providing, as the prayer says, support and comfort for the poor and neglected persons whom it would be easy for us to forget. It's support that allows us to be personally engaged with real people and programs, giving our time and talents in service as well as sharing our treasures. It's Reverend Matthew Engelby from El Hogar standing here in December 2012, inviting us to help children in a place where at least half the people make less than $2 a day, a place with the highest per capita murder rate in the world, and a place where the average age of first pregnancy is 14. He asked us to help take those poor or those abandoned children who have no hope, who have no aspiration, who have no ability or the means by which to be cared for into our care, to provide them a home, provide them food, medical care, dental care, and in the end, to allow them to graduate from high school with a degree and the ability to move on and begin a productive, fruitful life. And it's us responding with financial support, and it's us sponsoring Jairo, one of El Hogar's 250 students, and whose picture and letters to us you can see right around the corner in the parish hall. It's Reverend Fadi Diab, rector of St. Andrew's Church, Ramallah, and St. Peter's Church, Birzeit, again, standing right here this past June, reminding us that we are one body through baptism with the Christian community in the Middle East, who are persecuted and driven out. And he reminded us that that is not only a grace from God, but a mission to share our inheritance and blessings together. And it's us again responding, supporting 2 schools where over half of the graduates are finding jobs. Stewardship is the $18,000 we're spending this year on Facets and Echo, providing food and housing assistance to people in our community who need help. It's almost 70 Facets volunteers who share the work of shopping, setting up, cooking, and delivering 100 to 125 meals twice a month. It's some of those volunteers standing up at an adult forum earlier this summer, sharing their personal stories with us. Stewardship is Reverend David Wolf from Samaritan Ministry, visiting us in May to thank us for being part of the original 12 Episcopal congregations who gave birth to Samaritan almost 30 years ago, and for continuing to partner with struggling souls to make real change in their lives. And it's us sheltering and feeding and being there for 35 homeless people for a week in January through the hypothermia program. Stewardship is also us nurturing that amazing sense of community we have. It's the Oktoberfest dinner next Saturday. But it's far more than just having fun and enjoying each other's company, as important as that is. It's attracting new members who pick up on that vibe and want to be part of it. I hope you heard that in Christy Dasher's stewardship presentation a few weeks ago, how she went from being a shy 8 a.m. attendee to a women's fellowship participant, to the women's fellowship program lead, to now the vestry fellowship chair, because someone simply invited her to participate. It's about celebrating our great milestones, like the time we repurposed our February Italian dinner to honor Art Prentice as he stepped down after 25 years as our treasurer. And it's about keeping us strong as individuals and as a parish when we're going through tough times. There have been several examples of that this year, including one going on right now. Stewardship is also the incredible Christian formation opportunities that make this such a great place for families. The J2A pilgrimage and work camp are just 2 examples. The first pilgrimage was a car trip to Richmond, kind of a tentative step. The second one was a week-long journey to Ireland, and we were able to make that leap because 6 of our kids and their parents had the courage to step outside their comfort zones, and because of the time, talent, and dedication of adult mentors like Nancy Tillingast and Carol Robinson, and because of the financial support you provided, both through the budget and through participating in the fundraisers. This summer, 13 of our teens went to work camp, which you all know has become an institution here. One of the amazing things to me, and maybe the greatest testament to the strength of our formation program, is that both groups of kids felt inspired enough and secure enough to stand in front of all of you, including their parents, and reflect on their experiences. Bob Edmonds, Darren Williams and Debbie Braun talked to us a few weeks ago about the seemingly mundane business of keeping the doors open. But as they pointed out, what that's really all about is the people we reach because we welcome Girl Scouts and recovering alcoholics to this safe place. And we offer this safe place to St. Andrew's preschoolers. As Father Tim reminded us on Preschool Sunday, the 81 students enrolled here translate into about 300 people that we touch. And sometimes that touch results in those people deciding to make St. Andrew's their church home. It's Boy Scout Troop 1849, and as of last night, the 105 members who have achieved Eagle Scout rank since they were chartered in 1973. Think about that for a minute. On average, at least 2 new Eagle Scouts walk through our open doors every year. It's the Muslim women who were appreciative enough of the English as a second or other language classes that we offer, that they came here on a Sunday morning and sat right back there in our service to learn more about who we are. It's about the musicians of local, national, and international stature who have performed in FOMA concerts here, and the music lovers in our community who came to see them and who otherwise might not know that we exist. And speaking of existing, some of you may not know it exists, but keeping our doors open also means maintaining a beautiful and tranquil memorial garden right on the other side of this wall as a final resting place for the cremated remains of our departed loved ones. So that's a lot of amazing and exciting and life-changing things we're doing, right? And that doesn't even scratch the surface. And we should give ourselves a pat on the back for that. But if it's also good, why have we set a goal of $820,000 for this year's stewardship campaign, which is about $60,000 more than we raised last year? It's because we believe that the Holy Spirit is leading this parish to achieve a vision that's even more exciting and amazing. And there are 3 main pieces of that vision that are all falling into place right now. First, we're close to completing a strategic plan, something we haven't had in a long time. The plan will articulate where we want St. Andrews to go in the next 3 to 5 years, to improve and expand our worship, increase membership and participation, strengthen outreach to better address our communities and the world's changing needs, and create more accessible formation programs, and help us align our resources and our priorities to get there. The second major piece of the puzzle is a capital reserve study that will, for the first time, allow us to make informed decisions on budgeting for our facility escrow account, so we can continue to keep these doors open well into the future. And the last, maybe the biggest piece of our vision, what is it? The property. And that's coming together too. Well over 100 of you participated in the listening sessions orchestrated by our property committee. And they're going to report their findings out to you next week. Now, this represents just the first few steps of what will be a long and prayerful journey to turn those ideas into brick and mortar, but it's a great start. The way this is all coming together convinces me we're on the cusp of something big. And each one of us can enable and help shape this bright future with our treasure, time, talent, and prayers. So we're proud of the work we're doing here and now to build God's kingdom, and we're excited about where it's taking us in the future, right? So, now it's time to RSVP to that invitation from God to give back some of what He has given us to make it all happen. And that's where the golden calf comes back into the story. To do what God is calling us to do, we need to confront that critter. But who or what is he? Some of you that went to Shrinemont 2 years ago might think it's the golden or the magic cooler. It's not. The easy answer, the textbook solution is money, right? But I think it's not quite that simple, at least not for me. I don't think it's the money per se, but what we think that money does for us. And for some of us, it's not an issue. The church says I should put God first. The church says I should tithe. I'm going to do it, no questions asked. For others of us, not quite that simple. Money gives us a certain level of comfort and security in our current life situation, whatever that means for each of us. So if you want me to pledge, or you want me to work toward the tithe by increasing my pledge every year, you're asking me to take on some additional risk. Have you noticed that the cost of living around here is pretty brutal? That it's going to cost me a fortune to put my kids through college? And oh, by the way, the government services sector that a lot of us in this area are tied to hasn't exactly been stable or secure lately, has it? I absolutely get that. Lori and I are in that not tithing but working towards it category ourselves. We've tried to increase our pledge every year by 10%. And then I go and get laid off this summer. Long story short, I lucked out and had a new job almost immediately. The not so good news is, because of what's happened in the market around here, that job pays about 10% less than my old one. And I was tempted to put my annual pledge increase on hold this year because of it. And when I say tempted, how many of you remember the sermon Father Sandy gave a few weeks ago on the tempter, El Shaitan? I'm telling you, I'm saying that guy appeared on my shoulder, just like in the cartoons, the little guy, and he said, "Hey, you're making less money this year. You can keep your pledge the same and still claim that you're getting closer to the tithe. Eh? It's great." And I listened for just a second, and I said, get behind me and take your cow with you. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to accept a little bit more risk and try to follow Paul's advice to not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, present my requests to God. For all of us in that not quite where we need to be boat, I'll leave you with a following thought from a diocesan stewardship seminar I attended earlier this year, which I think really gives us a nice way to approach filling out that pledge card. It's a journey. We can't surrender to God entirely, but we can move toward putting God and not money at our center. Attempting the conversion is the key. So, here it is. Hopefully you've all received it in the mail. If not, you'll be getting it in the next day or so. Bring it back to church with you next Sunday on In-Gathering Sunday, filled out. And on behalf of your stewardship committee, myself, Bob Edmonds, Nob Moses, and Tessie Lynch, thank you very much.